my good friend Peter, who is the wonderful individual who is now responsible for my obsession with training manuals for operating manuals of locomotives now. So thank you, Peter. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. They're really, really awesome books, honestly. They teach you everything that you need to know about a locomotive.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not like these are books that you just can't buy. These are not books that just the railroads own and you can't. Luckily for us, most of the locomotives that are out there right now are, I guess, for instance, a great example is I don't know if we want to really remember this because we're both about around this time period that this guy came out. The GP60 Mac came out in the early 90s. I wasn't even born yet. I was born in 97. So these things already had 6 or 7 years up on me.
Yeah.
But those locomotives are deemed now not needed, even though they're only 30-ish, 40-ish years old. So see,
Yeah.
now, for
They're
instance,
still good
I
in their
mean,
lifespan.
and the other thing is 30, 40 years sounds like a lot, but when you realize in 2022 of last year,
Last year, yes, last year.
the SD40-2 celebrated its 50th anniversary, and
That it did.
there are still SD40-2s in rebuilds now that are roaming the rails still. The SD40N with Union Pacific. There is.
Yeah, I
I
worked on a
don't.
couple SD40Ns.
I
I worked on a
don't
couple of those.
remember. I don't exactly remember which railroad it is, but there is a railroad that has an SD40-4.
And a dash 4? What's a dash 4?
That means that they took the electronics from the Dash 2 and stepped it up 2 more times. They basically took a Dash 2 and rebuilt it for the second time. So you
Really?
have Dash 3 is a rebuild, Dash 4 is another rebuild of an SD40-2.
Okay. So hold on for
So
the people who may not be in the loop. Do you work for the railroad?
me? No. I work on cars, but I have a massive fascination with trains. And I work at the Jackson Street Roundhouse in St. Paul, Minnesota as just a volunteer. I primarily am working on some very, very famous locomotives. If you're a rail fan, we have the currently in Burlington Northern paint scheme, but she is a Great Northern locomotive, the 325, which is the sister locomotive by serial number of the famous Great Northern 400 Hustle Muscle.
That's pretty
So
cool.
we can't wait to have her back. She's being painted in Great Northern Orange. She's down in
Speaking of Hustle Muscle, not to
mm,
interject or anything, but recently Lionel made a Hustle Muscle freight set.
nice.
For O scale, yeah. I don't know if I sent it to you or not, but
Mm-hmm.
she's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
is it the Burlington Northern version though?
It's the Burlington Northern. What's up, Lucas? Howdy, man. How you doing?
So Lucas is interesting because he's a rail fan in my state. He literally lives like 10, 15 minutes away from my house.
Oh, well, howdy, Lucas.
So
Happy for you to join us. You got any questions?
Massive rail fan. Massive rail
There you
fan.
go.
But the thing is I'm just putting my models away and I'll show them at a later time. But the locomotives we currently have right now are let's see here. We have a SW1, 2 GE 45 tonners.
Oh, the SW1. Oh, those are so cool. Those are so nice.
What else? A GP7, an SD7, an SD9, an SDP40, and even though it's ours, it's in at the Lake Superior Railroad, an SD45 known as Hustle Muscle.
Is Hustle Muscle? Let me try to word this properly. Is there any plans to repaint Hustle Muscle to her actual Great Northern colors again?
She's in her Great Northern colors right now.
Oh, she is. Oh,
Yeah, that's
I
why
thought
I
you
say
said she was
that.
in her Burlington Northern colors still.
No, that's the O scale thing that you said. No,
Oh
no,
yeah, okay, I got you.
the one that's currently in its Burlington Northern colors is her sister 325.
Oh, okay, that's
325
325. Gotcha.
325 and Hustle Muscle were built side by side in 1966.
And those are GP50s, right?
325 is a SDP40. She's a passenger version of a SD40.
Oh, okay.
So
But I was saying that
it's
the Hustle Muscle and all that, they're GP50s, right?
They're SD45s.
45. I'm sorry.
Now, for all the rail fans, and I'd like to clear this for a lot of people that don't know, in 2019, during a power test with the Burlington Northern Santa Fe, the Hustle Muscle suffered a catastrophic crankshaft failure. Unfortunately for Hustle Muscle, that is not uncommon. The SD45s were basically a half-assed attempt on trying to make a locomotive that could compete with the General Electric U36C, because when the U36C came out, it was the most powerful locomotive in the world at the time, and General Motors wasn't having any of that. They needed a locomotive that could produce the same amount of horsepower, but what they did is they botched it and they rushed it. So one of the things they rushed was trying to develop a better crankshaft. They literally took the crankshaft out of a regular 645 V16, gave it 4 extra cylinders, and then raised the RPM to 950 RPMs.
And it's like, we're good.
Yeah, and it was good until many railroads started dealing with SD45 snapping their crankshafts in half.
And then snapped the reputation of EMD, unfortunately.
Now, EMD suffered its reputation on the 45. The thing that killed EMD's reputation was the SD50. That's why I make a joke. Whenever I see an SD50, I'll put in a YouTube comment and I'll say, now remember, guys, the SD50 will always be most reliable, and you can find those in models.
Oh, boy.
Now, the other thing is that 325 is really special because she's a passenger freight locomotive.
So now, with me working with UP for 6-7 months, we never had to deal with passengers, or I never had to deal with passengers. So what is the difference between, like, because they definitely don't teach you this in training class and all that. So what's the difference between having a non-passenger style locomotive and a passenger style locomotive of the same type?
So
what is the difference?
A regular SD40 is configured for freight, so it needs all the help it can get from its engine. It has 3,000 horsepower. An SDP40 is the same engine, derated to 2,300 horsepower with a steam generator in the back.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it was made during the time when people really didn't have this thing known as AC. So your AC was open the window. But the thing is unlike a car where you could just command the car to give you heat, passenger car doesn't have that. Yeah. So the steam generator at the time, now 325 doesn't have her steam generator. You can just walk through the whole room where the steam generator would have been. And it was taken out because why would we have a steam generator on a giant diesel locomotive when we can put a couple Cummins generators on the frickin' passenger cars?
Oh yeah, just slap a big old Cummins diesel on the back. You're good.
Yeah, that's what we've done basically. But now one thing a lot of people don't know is 325 was actually in a wreck.
Really?
Yeah, 325 was in a Burlington Northern wreck. This is when Burlington Northern was using her just as a freight locomotive. And she wasn't wrecked terribly. It kind of shows her damage versus the General Electric U-boat that was behind her. It kind of shows a difference on. This is at the time when GM could still get away with stupid crap, but now GE can get away with the stupid crap. It kind of shows a difference on who made the better locomotive, and this is why I always think that EMD is the better locomotive, because 325, her front end, the front end of the plate was fractured and pushed in like this, but that was about it. The U-boat behind
the train?
Yeah, the front of the nose of the train was kicked in like that. So instead of it being
like a crooked nose, like a
instead of the front end being like this, it was kicked into the back by the trucks. And that was the only damage she took. She only took damage from the front and destroyed one of the very front traction motor. Now, The U-boat behind her was obliterated.
Good old General Electric.
No, the U-boat behind her had. Luckily, no one was in the U-boat.
Yeah, that's that. Let's
Okay.
emphasize that. Nobody was hurt.
No one was in it.
Killed.
No one was hurt or killed. No one was hurt. But the U-boat. What happened is that the U-boat had its cab pushed backwards into the engine compartment.
Ooh.
So if anyone would have been in there, you would have not been alive for very long.
Sliced in half, eh?
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, the 325 was donated to us by the Burlington Northern Santa Fe running. Not running. She was running. She came to us on her own power.
That's cool. What did you guys get her then? What year?
2009 she came to us, and I wasn't there, obviously. I was too young. But the story goes,
school, I guarantee it.
Yeah, the story goes with 325 is that she rolled down while we were doing the Jackson Street Roundhouse on a Saturday does they do a train. You ride on an SW1 or the SW1200 that we have, and just pulls you up to past like these Great Northern era buildings, and then you go back. It's really cool. It's really cool because the locomotives you were on are non-turbocharged 567 EMDs. So you can actually hear them really, really working.
Ooh, that's nice. Oh yeah.
But
hey, I speaking of those 567 prime movers, I remember doing when I worked for the UP when we have a new remote control. I don't know. Do you guys have remote control boxes?
We do not.
Oh, you do not.
As far as I know, we don't. Basically,
so typically you would have like your own cut. So rather than like a high visibility jacket, it's a high visibility jacket, but it's got metal. It's got titanium bars on the back to support your to keep your back straight, and the thing drops to about just below your belly button, and so you're able to relax your arms. And let me demonstrate this. So I mean, I'm 6'4", so my belly button is like right around here. So just below that, you would have your box sitting right here, and it's supported down here and up here. So you're able to work the knobs and all the buttons right here. Those 567 prime movers, when I would have when we have to, because we'd have to manually in Roseville Yard, in Fresno Yard, we had GP.
I was about to say Roseville Yard is the one where Southern Pacific decided to drop off a bomb train.
Well, found out that
hey, at least Western Pacific didn't do it.
Yeah, well, yeah, it wasn't Union Pacific, but that was a whole other thing. Pacific. That was a whole other thing that Journal got super hot, caught fire of a boxcar and exploded. But we're getting off topic here. So during all of our testing in Fresno for our remote control operator class, we'd have to manually turn on those GP18Ns. I think they were. I'd have to look at the numbers again. Go back in old footage I have. And those things kicked on. Those things were laboring to get going, but once they got going, they were rock solid, and you could feel the vibration in the cab when you have to siphon all your stuff and sync up with the computer and all that. So that was really cool.
Now the thing that's nice. Okay, so here's this. First off, to show you an idea of what we have, it's this. Imagine it's the 1960s. You have your vest. You have a Carhartt jacket, and you just chill out.
There was a thing as a vest. You just walked on
the
train.
You literally have a frickin' vest. You maintain 3 points of contact, have a jacket, and maintain this thing called common sense. Everything works out pretty good in that sense.
It does. I miss those.
But the thing is that our SW1 number 3110, she's really interesting because her throttle doesn't have any notches. It's an air throttle.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yes. So she has an air throttle.
That drives me nuts.
The thing that's amazing about the air throttle, all right,
hi, Sean.
is that
welcome to the stream, dude.
Welcome, Sean. We're going to talk about why 3110 is a really unique EMD. The thing that's great about her is you can operate her like a GE, where you can just slam the throttle all the way to full power, and she'll immediately go to full power.
God, to me, thinking of like, I look at the SD70 Aces and the G
And you have to
Gevos that I
notch it.
worked on.
You have
You
to
gotta
you have
notch
to
those
put it
things, and they're really
it into a
finicky to
notch.
get going.
Yeah, you put it in notch 1, wait a couple seconds, notch 2, wait a couple seconds, notch 3, and do the same thing. On
Yeah.
3110, you can just slam the throttle forward,
Dude. Oh,
and
that's
the only
scary
thing
to me.
that you get to hear is a little 567 V6 with no turbo, okay, and just a generator and a mechanical feed. It doesn't even I don't think it even has a blower. I think it's just a mechanical 567.
Wow.
So no blower, just the mechanical engine. And this thing is like the entire interior, it's hilarious because the seats that you get makes you feel like you're in a 1940s barber shop. That's the first part that's great. The second thing is that this is also the locomotive that's at the era where there is no side rails.
Oh my God, yes.
So you have the arm bars that are up here that you have to walk with the bar.
Oh,
Um,
no.
there is to open up the engine bay. There is no latches up top or bottom. It's just a door handle on the side.
Really? That's weird because
Yes.
I think the SW1 at the Western Pacific Railroad Museum, I think it has doors on it, like
And here's the other thing
proper
that's surprising about her.
latch and top and bottom locks
Here's
latches.
the
I
other thing
think.
that's surprising about 3110. Her traction motor bearings are journal boxes.
So
I'm
she's
dead
able.
serious.
She's able to run on the main line properly.
We
She?
cannot run on the interchange line. However, BNSF, because they're really good friends with us, I don't know why. There's a track that they do a local service to this glass mill that's on the side of our place. This track, they say on Saturdays, since we're not going to run there anyways, you can use this track to go back and forth from your place, but you cannot hit the switch that goes to our interchange track.
Well,
Because
yeah,
then it's
because that's
highly
not their
illegal.
property. That's
Exactly.
your property. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge FRA violation there.
Exactly. But they say as long as 3110 stays on the track that they allow, they're fine with it. They don't care.
Yeah.
But
well, the glass mill. I mean, I remember. I've gone to a couple of industries. Are you with the location of that glass mill? Are you restricted to how many? Are you restricted to how many cars can be in at one time, or no?
No.
Okay.
But it's just we have to.
I was thinking,
But we have to understand that if we see a BNSF train coming, we got to get the hell out of the way.
Well, that too, yeah.
Because they're priority. But
yeah.
Going back to 325, the story goes that there was a train running there and it was forced to come back. And the reason it was forced to come back is because BNSF brought 325 with a crew under her own power from the Northtown Yard, which is like 10-15 minutes away ish if you maintain track speed, brought her to us and basically said, here you go, have fun.
It's yours now, take it.
They wrote a form down donating it to us, got into one of those high rail trucks, took off. It's literally how they did it.
Bye guys.
They said that the engine was still running. They literally deposited it to us with a full tank of gas, oil, water, everything.
Okay, that's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty nice, I will admit. But Peter, I don't know if I've sent you this. Sean actually might have seen it. If Sean's in here, let me know if you've seen it. There's a video that I think transpired yesterday, or it came out super late last night. Supposedly Portola, California has got slammed. I don't live in Portola. I really wish I did. It's really pretty up there. They got snowed in pretty hard, and they actually had to bust out their they had a ton of snow, and they actually had to whip out their rotary snowplow with an F7B booster unit in the back.
That's awesome.
It had their MP, had their switcher, their SW 1500 number 1503 pushing, and I was like, "Oh, dude, that was gnarly to watch." Sean, I don't know, Sean, let me know if you've seen that video or not. But it
Now-
definitely was. It definitely wasn't on the Western Pacific's museum YouTube page.
Mhm.
It's like the CB&Q dropped
Yes.
off a big 484 at the Colorado
So-
State Museum. Yo,
so
yeah.
the funny thing about that story is now there's a YouTuber that I love watching. His name is Heist, and he makes a.
Oh, I love
I'll
Heist.
basically
Yes.
I'll condense it down to what happened. The CB&Q literally ran track across the street and blocked the street off. Pushed the steam engine in, grabbed all the track back, and left before cops could show up.
It's like, all right,
And
fellas,
they basically said they basically said, "Here you go, have fun," and then they left.
Yeah,
because they were at least sentimental enough that they didn't want it to be scrapped.
Yeah. It would be really
Apparently-
cool. It'd be really cool.
apparently,
if CB&Q
now, In the
Sorry.
news, now in the rail fanning news, there was a YouTube video. I don't have a lot of information because I kind of skimmed through it. There is a locomotive at a museum. I think it's like an SD40-2 or something like that. That was an old Milwaukee Road locomotive that they're restoring and then painting in the 1976 bicentennial paint scheme. And it's a Milwaukee Road SD40-2 that they're restoring to operation, but also keeping it in the paint scheme because of why not?
No. There's a speaking of bicentennial.
There was an
one of the Santa Fe- one of the
SD45-2.
Santa Fe
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, it looks beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Now,
cool.
the other thing that's really interesting is when you go to the Jackson Street Roundhouse and you get inside. When you go inside, the first thing you're greeted by is the walls with photos. It's kind of weird because it's like a painting photo, if that makes any sense. Where it's on the wall, but it is a photo that's been massively enlarged, and it shows switcher steam engines from like the early teens at the Roundhouse. Then it goes to a steam engine that's at the water tank by the Roundhouse, which unfortunately is no longer there. And then a steam engine with a date from 1936 with the steam engine there, full of coal, ready to go, and all the daytime guys that are standing in front for the photo shoot.
Like a publicity photo?
Yeah, like a publicity shot.
Oh, nice.
In 1936. And then there's photos of different shops in there was a shop for the Great Northern Railroad, I think in Montana. And it shows now I'm gonna say something in the chat that this is going to get people riled up. But I would like to but before you say anything, I'd like to point out something real quick.
Keyboards are ready.
There are Northern Pacific Challengers. That's what's going to get them going. 4664 Challengers in their Montana shops. Now, the reason I call them Challengers is not because that's what they're actually supposed to be called. They're supposed to be called 4664s, except the Union Pacific Challenger class was the first ever wheel arrangement of that. So it's called a Challenger by me because they made the first one ever. So it's a Challenger, boys. Sorry. Now, if Northern Pacific made that one first, I would call it what it is. But since Union Pacific made it first and called it Challenger, it's a Challenger. I'm sorry. Sucks to be you guys. Sorry.
The Midwest right now.
Yeah, I know, and I don't care.
You are ruffling some jimmies right now.
Good, I'm glad.
I'm glad you're doing it, not me. For once.
But
you can suck on that UP cock as much as you want. I will not.
So in chat, remember this: that there is a photo of two Challengers that are there as yes, and then there's another photo with a Challenger and a Northern as well.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's a really awesome place. They also have
what was Great Northern? I think it was Great Northern. What was the color that they painted their boilers of their big, massive steam locomotives, like their Berkshires and Northerns?
Everyone gets it wrong. Everyone paints it green. It was never really green. It was more gray than green. Everyone will paint it green because of one locomotive that actually is painted green, and it's Great Northern. So they think that that's the paint scheme that they have. When you realize, if you look at the green that you have there, and then if you look at a tone that's just a little bit darker, you have the British Tornado. You really think that we'd paint an American steam engine one shade brighter than Tornado?
Painting in red coat colors.
Really? Really?
Do that.
Remember, boys, we're rail fans, not loyalists. But
oh my
so
gosh.
no, the paint scheme is normally it is still green, but it's more like a really, really grayish green.
Okay. Because I'm thinking to myself, man, if I was sitting in my car and I saw like a cleanish steam locomotive that was one of their more fast freight locomotives or passenger locomotives and had that nice green color, I think to myself, man, that's really nice.
Yes.
Because I mean, it's like I always thought, like, for me, it was like growing up as a kid. It's like I knew the Santa Fe with the war bonnet scheme for diesels.
Well, which bonnet scheme are we talking about? Are we talking about red and silver, the blue or
red,
yellow?
Silver, the war bonnet.
Blue and yellow was still good. Let's be honest.
Blue and yellow is good. I prefer blue. I prefer base color yellow with yellow base, blue stripe, whiskers. I prefer that. But also for me, for steam locomotives, as a kid, I always thought the Great Northerns were one of the prettiest ones, but I just like the color. I just didn't like the aesthetic that they had, and that's just personal preference. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, Mr. Hill would, I think, disagree with you because, I mean, his train was only known as the Empire Builder.
I know. I will admit, the Empire Builder does have some very nice.
I understand that there's like all these all these different train names at the steam age, where there's the 20th Century Limited, the Broadway Limited. They sound great. It's except the fact that when you have a steam passenger train known as Empire Builder, that's going at to the time of, like, the Cornelius Vanderbilt era, where we're calling it after like imperialist kind of crap. Which I find hilarious because I find it really hilarious because James J. Hill was not a railroad robber baron. He was a railroad baron, definitely. Yeah. But he was also not Minnesotan, and he was not rich.
And he came from the craft.
He came from the craft, born in Canada.
Yeah.
And he was very poor.
He was, but I only know
he was a very, very poor guy. And what was great about that is that running through the ranks, he learned how to deal with BS that no one cared about, but also he was also the kind of guy that dealt more with his crews rather than the top dog big brass guys. So there's a story of what happened in the 1920s. There was a huge snowstorm in Minnesota at the time, like it did.
I have a question, anymore. Peter, really quickly before you continue. Are you said you do volunteer? Do you tell people when they do come, do you give them do you talk to them about the history of the Great Northern in Milwaukee?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, it's resonating with me. I'm like, you just cannot be in the back shop doing all the dirty work. You've got to have, with the amount of knowledge, like, they'd be dumb to not have you talk about stuff like that.
Now, the thing that goes in is in the early 20s, there was a massive snowstorm that it wasn't a blizzard because it didn't last more than a couple days, but there was a massive snow dump of, I think, like 8 feet of snow. And this is at the time when, your car was actually a horse-drawn carriage and you had to be rich to have that, so you're walking. And James J. Hill, his house actually across the street has a horse carriage barn. It's still standing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he got out of his house, his nice warm house, got into the horse carriage, which, keep in mind, the horse carriage, it was still snowing. The horse carriage didn't have, it was literally an open top carriage. So it's snowing in with him.
Ew.
Okay?
Oh.
And he rides all the way down. He rides all the way down to the Jackson Street Roundhouse which was a lot bigger than it actually is now. It's really big right now, but it used to be way bigger. There used to be a whole section. There's a whole section of the building missing. There's 5 tracks that are missing right now. So the parking lot in the back is where the 5 tracks would have been. But anyways, he goes down and there's like 200 guys that are there. Everyone was basically called in just to shovel the frickin' snow, and all the guys that weren't on their shift yet would just go home. But he arrives down there.
Like, what time is it at this point? Do you know?
I think it was about like 9 in the morning. So guys that weren't on their shifts yet were reported to come down, and they were obviously going to be paid benefits because it's not your shift yet.
Yeah.
This was at the time when if your manager said, "Can you please come down? We just need some help, and then you can go home, and we'll give you overtime for what you did." That was a thing. Now it's not, but it was a thing back then. But what happened was that
Thinking
James
about
J.
your
Hill,
employees, what do you mean?
Hill at the time had so much money that he would have had more money than Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk combined. That's how much money Hill was worth at the time. And this man who could have just, sat in his house, smoked cigars all day long, who cares, comes down to the Jackson Street Roundhouse, picks up a shovel and starts working with his guys. And everyone didn't leave. Even the guys that were supposed to work from like 2 in the morning, they did not leave. Because he made them breakfast, he made them lunch, he had them have dinner. He gave them all breaks in between. So, and it took them from, I think from 9 in the morning, they started on their shift at about 7. It took them, keep in mind, you don't have you don't have snow blowers, you can't get a rotary in there because it's just too big.
Yeah, because I live in California. We don't.
And most of there were 2 tools these guys were using: snow shovels and brooms, and maybe a torch to like take off some of the ice on the rails. But
I could imagine if there was like points, and they froze over. Ooh.
Yeah, and what happened is that no one left. Even the guys that weren't supposed to be there at that time, they didn't leave either.
That right there reminds
I'd like to point out that these guys basically, so if these guys started at like 11 at night or something and ended at not 11 at night, so like maybe, let's see here, what's an 8-hour shift that goes to like 2 a.m. because I think that was the time.
That's like you start at, you said 2 a.m. I'd say that starts at like 3 o'clock, maybe 4.
So you start at 3. These guys got paid for their whole shift, and they got paid overtime for basically starting at 7.
They didn't even have to go on a train. That's even better.
They literally everyone started at 7. They left at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And the guys who didn't start and were supposed to work from 3, that whole time wasn't double time. James J. Hill would have paid them the equivalent of quadruple time for that.
Wow. That's nice.
So these guys are, this would be the equivalent. This is like, these guys are what? You start out fresh with like Canadian Pacific Railroad, you get paid like $36.99 an hour or whatever. This would be the equivalent of being paid $102 an hour, and then times that by 4.
Run, I got something I got to do, but I'm definitely going to check back in and finish watching the show. All right, well, Sean, thank you for hopping in, man. I do appreciate it, dude. Have a good one.
Imagine that for a second. $102 an hour, and then multiply that by 4.
That's wild. But no,
that honestly, is a lot of money for that time.
It's a lot of money. No, I get that.
I mean, again, they were only probably being paid like maybe 12 cents, maybe $1 an hour. But the fact that back in the day, you could go buy some gum for a penny.
Just prices were way cheaper back then.
Yeah. So, but also the dollar was worth more. So if you're being paid, let's say, for instance, these guys are being paid, I don't know, $2, but you multiply that by 4 for every hour that you worked.
That's a lot. That's a boatload right there.
Yeah. For that time, all these guys could have retired right there. right then and there, and probably lived another 30 years without having to do anything, really.
No, it's just that's right. That right there with him
Mm-hmm.
saying, and we're going out there and working with this crew.
Mm-hmm.
I got to experience that with with two managers I
Mm-hmm.
had when I was working this summer
Mm-hmm.
in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
They actually were out there. They weren't your typical manager sits out in a truck and jerks off the entire time. They were actually out there
Mm-hmm.
helping the new guys and
Mm-hmm.
giving them tips. And if you and I remember one time I made a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
and the railroad will vilify you over every little mistake you do. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Don't worry about it. You're learning. You're brand spanking new to this. Don't worry about it. You're fine. I'm not gonna." They're like, they even told me that I'm not gonna fire you because your training is garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt comfortable. I felt comfortable that I knew if I did something wrong, there was a safety parachute back there, which was the manager, who, if at times if he needed to come in, he came in. Which
Mm-hmm.
that I feel is how it should be done. And
See, now, the thing
that's
with
all.
the railroad at Hill's time, there really wasn't any real firings. It was more at the time that it was, I guess this would be a really crap way of putting you getting fired. In any sense, if you were getting fired, it wasn't because you were actually getting fired. It was you were getting fired because you died.
Or
Okay?
you caused a lot of money for the company.
Like think about this, all right? They're in the shop area where 6234 or SD9 is right now. Right in front of 6234 is a drop pit for the drivers of steam locomotives. So there's a catwalk, and it's very safe to go over. It's not like a big problem. But going over this catwalk, if you look down, there's a 20-foot drop right there. And this was designed so that you'd have a steam engine that would roll up on here. If they had to do maintenance on the wheels, they would unbolt all the wheels, and then they would take this thing, and it would have like a sign that says "Stop," warning, hole in the ground, or something like that. And this table would drop down all the way 20 feet for the guys in the pit to work on these things. So these guys down there are the guys that are ripping off the old tires, setting up the new tires next to the wheel, and then putting gas flame tubes on the tire to expand them. There's a great scene of that happening in an old 1960s movie called The Last of the Giants, where they show two Union Pacific machinists right next to the new tire that's supposed to go on one of the drivers for a Union Pacific big boy. And they light the tire on fire.
I've actually seen that one. It's been a long
time. They light the tire on fire. The fire expands the metal. They hit the tire on with hammers. And then they gauge it for position before the tire shrinks back onto the driver.
Yeah.
But that's what those guys were doing down there. Now,
that's wild.
Now the thing is about this site, we don't know, but a lot of people say this site is in fact haunted because of, I don't know, maybe like 50 or 60 guys in its history perishing, especially during the turn of the century.
That's wild.
If that makes any sense. I mean, something's gonna be there if you have someone that, is just walking, doing his own business, not looking, drops down the 20-foot pit and dies instantly.
Yeah, not paying attention.
Or like, here's the thing: technology for steam engine, technologies back in the day. How do you think? Imagine a steam locomotive cylinder bursting right next to someone. That was something that happened.
Burns, death.
Well, that's more. You're being boiled at that point.
Yeah.
So there's that. The thing is that I was thinking we should start getting into the models.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. So I'll have you go first. Is that
okay?
Fine?
So since I have a lot of money, that's not the case. It's actually I have no control over my wallet when I see something I want. which is
Don't
kind
we
of
all
how.
have a little bit of problem with that, to be honest?
Yeah, but it sucks more when you're a mechanic and you're a rail fan. So you have two hobbies that suck, and I'm trying to get out of the mechanic one because it's starting to bore the hell out of me. So I'll still work on the trains, but the cars, that ain't gonna happen.
The cars don't excite you anymore, shall we say?
No, they're too electronic. They're too full of crap. So I'll start with, and these are, keep in mind, all these, for all the rail fans that are in this podcast, just remember that every single one of these three locomotives I'm going to show you, these are Athearn Genesis locomotives. So yes, they are very expensive. The first one I have here is from EMD. What's
really
up?
Quickly. Are you gonna do reviews on these?
I can. I mean, I've never run them, but I can at least do the history of them, which I was planning on doing anyways.
Hold on. What's up, Ed? Yeah. All right. Keep going.
So
You have the floor.
this one is known as the SD90 Mac. Now, what's interesting about the SD90 Mac is this was made during the time of when General Electric and EMD were in a massive horsepower race. And they were trying to figure out an engine that was able to, it was basically an engine that was supposed to do the thing that the DDA40X and the U50s and U50Cs were designed to do. Now, both of those had two engines. They were trying to do it with one. In the end, General Electric would win, but not really. They were both kind of crap. General Electric had the AC 6000 CW. I don't have a model of that, but I'm trying to. And EMD had the SD90 Mac. Now, the interesting thing about the 90 Mac is that they're still around. They're not called an SD90 Mac, and if they are, that's pretty special. But most of them are not actually called that. They're called SD70 ACUs. And we were probably wondering, well, what's the difference between a 90 Mac and an ACU? An ACU replaces the crap prime mover that EMD put in it with a SD70 base model. If I remember this correctly, base model engine. It is tier 2 emission compliant, which means that it's not emission compliant at all. But at least it won't suffer the fate that the 90 Macs had. Now, the easy way to tell a 90 Mac is back in the day is the fact that only two railroads ran them really. I don't remember the other one, but the most famous one of all, I call them the sucker railroad because they will buy anything from you. Is the Union Pacific.
Controversial opinion. I don't like the Conrail blue.
What was it?
Controversial opinion. I do not like the Conrail blue color.
Controversial opinion. I'm with you on that. It's just I like the SD80 Mac, so deal with it.
Nah, too.
I don't like the Conrail blue color for a completely different reason. I don't like how it's basically 80% socialism that runs that railroad. Actually, it's 85%. Yeah, 85% of shares for Conrail was owned by the U.S. government. So that's an 85% socialist railroad. And Amtrak's 100% socialist. So, yay. But anyways.
The most enthusiastic yay ever.
Yeah. So the thing that's interesting about the 90 Mac is that it was made at a time when GE and EMD were trying to figure out a locomotive that was capable of producing 6,000 horsepower with one single prime mover. The problem is that both of them failed. GE failed less than EMD, but they both basically failed.
You both lose.
The problem is that EMD basically did the same crap that they did with their SD50, which they took an engine that definitely couldn't handle it. This one actually could. It just wasn't that great. They were having multiple technical problems with the EMD 710 engine. So there's a reason why in models there's an SD90 an SD90 43 Mac and an SD90 Mac. The SD43 Mac is an SD90 Mac with a derated 4,300 horsepower engine. Now, this one, you will be able to know that this one is in fact labeled as an SD90 Mac Phase 2H. And that H designates that it is the 6,000 horsepower engine. The problem is that they drank fuel like it was beer. That's the first problem. And secondly,
that's what I remember hearing about.
Secondly, the other reason is because there was really only 2 railroads that would be able to effectively run these guys. They had way too much power. You only really need 4,400 horses. Really, that's all you really need. Now, the easy way that you can tell that this is a newer 90 Mac is from the front end not being a Mac front end. It's actually an Ace front end. Notice how this is an Ace. That's an Ace front end.
Yes, the best nose in the industry by far.
So
it is the best.
Now the other thing that's interesting about the 90 Macs is they continued the same thing that the SD80 Macs had, with the flared radiators at the back.
Yes, those are so nice.
Now, the whole problem with this locomotive is the fact that it basically was a flop. Now, the other locomotive I have is known as the Middle Mac. And the reason why it's called the Middle Mac is because it was being made at the time when the SD90 Mac was being developed. But the reason why it was called the Middle Mac, and it would be called Middle Mac later on actually, is because the SD9, when it came out, it was just SD80 Mac. Or it was also known because they ran so well and they rode so well, they were nicknamed Conrail's Cadillacs. The thing about the SD80 Mac is it would later be called the Middle Mac later on because it produced more horsepower than the SD70 Mac and less than the SD90 Mac. That's why it was named the Middle Mac, and arguably the better of the two, because it was the only. It's one of 2 only EMD locomotives to have a V20. The other one's the SD45.
So now, this.
So the SD80 Mac, what makes this one interesting? Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yes, and I want to take it out, but I'll let you keep talking. I'm going to pull it out.
All right.
Yes, I have delved to the dark side. I have got.
Good.
Stop it. I bought myself some UP rolling stock.
Nice. So now the thing is the whole idea is for the SD80 Max, and this is a really awesome history. The SD80 Max were never designed to pull anything but coal. Nice.
Operating manual.
So the way you can tell a Mac hood over a Ace hood is that a Mac hood is flat without the Ace addition. Notice how it's flat. Doesn't have that addition that the Ace hood
The windows are a big giveaway too.
Exactly. But the other thing is that as you'll note, this looks almost exactly like an SD90 Mac. Now there is an easy way that you can tell an 80 Mac over a 90 Mac. Look at the back end.
In the back.
The back end is an easy giveaway on an SD80 Mac over an SD90 Mac. Another easy way to know the difference between an SD80 Mac and an SD90 Mac is that all of the 80 Macs are gone. They were all scrapped.
90s are still operated by one of the Canadian class ones, right?
Yeah, the Canadian Pacific and the Norfolk Southern runs them as SD70 ACUs. But the thing that the SD80 Mac is the fact that it was designed for one purpose and one purpose only. It was designed to pull massive coal trains through the Pocahontas divisions and the Poconos. In West Virginia for Conrail. These things never ever pulled an intermodal during Conrail service. They were also designed to have massive tractive effort to pull basically by themselves a loaded coal train. These things had a starting tractive effort of 185,000 foot-pounds. Nice.
California Fruit Company.
No, but these things, the tractive effort of these things was insane starting. 185,000 foot-pounds starting and 141,000 foot-pounds at 20 miles an hour. That's just nuts.
Oh gosh!
And these
going up the
these
hill
were
at 20 mile an hour, that sucks.
just imagine, just picture in your mind as a rail fan, I'm
a railroader.
The Powder River Basin coal trains with Burlington Northern. They have a crap ton of locomotives that are pulling them. Now imagine one of these doing it, and it's just one. That was the whole designation for the SD80 Mac. This thing cemented itself of being a road locomotive that pulled like a switcher. I'm going to get to that real quick. I'm going to get to something that probably pulled one of those.
Yeah.
But the one thing is, and the reason there's two reasons why I love this thing. First off, because I have one and Wipeout doesn't.
You got a lot of things that I do not have.
Like a life? No, I'm kidding.
Am I surprised have things that I do not have? No.
The thing is, that's really, really interesting, is that the boxcar that he has currently was probably pulled by a locomotive I'm about to show you. So that is a 40-foot boxcar, right?
It's a flush door. It looks like no, it's a
what
reefer.
Is it?
This is an all steel reefer. Yeah,
so now the one thing for all the rail fans, and yes, this one was very expensive. All the rail fans in here, you'll notice that this Genesis box is slightly bigger than the others. There's a reason for this.
I know what it is.
There's a reason why the Union Pacific Railroad is known as the Great Big Rolling Railroad. Why? Because of what this is.
They're a bunch of losers. I'm sorry. That's an unpopular opinion. I'm sorry.
This is number 6930. The DDA 40X. The big boy of the diesel locomotives. That's really nice. The largest diesel locomotive ever made. The largest.
Peter has heckled me to get the MTH DDX 40.
The largest locomotive that was successful. This is the DDA 40X. Look at how gorgeous that is.
Are you done circle jerking?
One prime mover, second prime mover. What's interesting about this model is that when you turn it on, prime mover 1 turns on first, and then prime mover 2 starts up its starting sequence. This locomotive is one of the very few locomotives, apart from the DD35, to have a D-truck arrangement, which means that each truck has 8 wheels on 4 axles. It produced 6,600 horsepower, and the horns that were available for this locomotive were either a RS3L or an RS5T. And originally, when they first came out, it wasn't even horns. It was actually a Carter air raid siren. Imagine how well that worked out at the height of the Cold War, hearing a Carter air raid siren coming down the railroad tracks. This is literally EMD's peak performance in the railroad industry. And I like to point this out for all the fans that love your SD40-2s. I want you to remember something. If EMD never made this locomotive, the things they learned from this thing would never have made the SD40-2 as good as it is. So without this thing's help, it would not be on mainline service for over 50 years.
All right, and my last little box here I've got both of these.
Now that I'm done basically broadcasting that I have better diesels than you, did I say that out loud?
Unfortunately, you did. I'll remember that.
Should I bring out my Alco DO109s?
No, you should not, because I want to talk about my last boxcar that I'm wanting to do a review on.
This one always
crew, rise up, let's go. One of my favorite aircraft ever. Got the boxcar for it, and I want to make a quick shout out to Western Depot. The fine gentlemen were able to get me.
We're doing a train thing, and you're talking about World War II aircraft.
Hold on, I talked about it for like 5 seconds. What do you mean?
World War II aircraft in a train thing.
I'm blabbering about some dude.
And if you guys are curious on how much the DDA-40X is, it was about as expensive as the real one. So it cost me $534. So my wallet hurt just about as much as probably the Union Pacific did every time they shelled out the amount that was needed. That is nice looking.
Yes, this is very nice.
Unfortunately, it's not an F6F Hellcat. Did I get you on that one? Ah, damn. I'm sorry. Oh, no, wait, I'm not.
I love this one. Also, it comes with its own brake pipe pressure, or brake pipe.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty nice.
I completely forgot that I had my Micronix on my bedside right here, and I pushed down on the bed, and I nearly lost all of them on the floor.
Oh.
Nearly. But now remember, nearly is the same as saying didn't happen. But now instead of having to getting to put my DDA-40X back, now I get to put this stupid Micronix back. Go in the thing, you fools.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward. So stay tuned to my channel for an eventual review of this.
See, now the thing is I have a video, 2 videos I want to put up of 2 SD40Ns pulling really hard by themselves on an intermodal. But there's another one that I have of a Canadian Pacific Gevo pulling a Kansas City Southern SD70 Ace. Ooh. And I'm like right next to them. But the problem is that you can see my finger in the shot just a little bit. Ooh. Because I tried doing the thing that you wanted me to do, to stick it like this instead of like this. And I got my finger in the shot and I couldn't see it. So I had to delete a little bit of it. And you still see my finger, but not as bad. And it's kind of like, this is why I don't do it from the side, and I do it
just
from
be mindful
like
of it then, you know?
No.
Yes.
No, that requires too much effort.
Lazy.
Coming from you, you couldn't even survive on the railroad. I'm doing it longer than you.
If the guy who fired me,
I bet you $100. I bet you $100 that burn hurt a lot, didn't it? That burn hurt pretty good.
Huh? You didn't have to go there, man. What the heck?
Uh-huh.
You didn't have to go there.
Why don't you tell everyone why you got fired from the Union Pacific Railroad?
We'll do that in a later episode. We're about ready to hit our timer.
How about right now?
No, later. Not now.
Everyone is watching and are very attentive of wanting to know.
Well, you can't just blow it off from the first episode. You gotta prolong it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with Peter and I for our first High Iron Rails podcast. Really do appreciate it. We'll be back at it again next Sunday, same time, 11 a.m. PST and 2 p.m. EST. So
now, the thing that I'd like to point out is what we're planning on doing with this is we're going to do one that's a model railroad deal, and then the other one that's going to be a history part of the railroad. Now, the problem is that the railroad has so much history that I can't just talk about it all at once. And the issue that I find is that out of all the things that I want to talk about, the first one I want to gravitate towards is something that happened in Ohio. I think we can all figure out what happened.
And we could all figure it out. So I'm guessing
Now-
that's going to be I'm guessing that's going to be our next episode.
Yes, next episode we're going to talk. Two rail fans are going to give insight of why the Norfolk Southern Railroad decided to put a chemical bomb inside the United States of America.
Stay tuned for that. Well,
I would like to point out one of the things that I'll just give a preview of one thing that will be happy and they'll make you guys happy in that program is one of the things that I'll draw history from is the Penn Central Railroad.
ooh, fun times. All right.
On why the Norfolk Southern failed.
All right. Well, I'm Life Out Trains. Thank you guys for watching the stream. Really do appreciate it. If you like what you saw, I would appreciate a like, comment, and subscription. Also, while you're at it, go sub down to my buddy down here, B Pestro, Feso. I don't know how do you pronounce that?
Peter Fesso.
There you go. It will be in the description for his YouTube channel. So stay tuned. Next week we'll be discussing the whole Ohio Norfolk Southern debacle that's gone on. So hopefully we will see you guys there. And as always, you guys have a awesome day. And happy Easter.
Happy Easter, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.